Purusharthas and Doctrine of Karma. Hello students, today we are going to look into the concept of Purushartha and Karma, two very important concepts that has played a vital role in Indian thought and society. In fact, they can be said to be the two concepts that carry the essence of Indian culture and civilization. Let us first try to define what is Purushartha and Karma before moving on to analyze their effect on Indian society. Purushartha, understood literally, means what is sought by men. So, we may understand it as indicating a human end or purpose. Man is the only living thing who can act instinctively and also deliberately. This means he can set before himself certain specific purposes or ends by conscious choice and work towards these ends. This is the main difference the activities of men and other creatures in nature. These conscious pursuits are what have been transformed into Purusharthas in Hinduism. Even the ends which man shares with other animals in nature like food and rest can become Purushartha if these are also sought with a higher aim in mind. We may thus define a Purushartha as an end which sought consciously either for its own sake or for the sake of using it as a means to accomplish any further goal. The word Purushartha consists of two words, Purusha meaning person and Artha meaning aim or end. Hence, we find our above definition of Purushartha as means, aim or goal of human life. Correct? When looking at the combination of words that make up the whole word, there are four Purusharthas that have been used in India from very early times. Dharma, duty; Artha, wealth; Kama, pleasure; and Moksha, liberation. Dharma. Different texts and different people give different orders for the four Purusharthas according to their own interpretation. We are going to look at the Purusharthas in the following order: Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha before moving on to study the doctrine of karma and rebirth. The root of the word Dharma comes from the Sanskrit word Dri, which actually means to uphold or maintain. Dharma is explained in Sanskrit as Drayati iti dharmaha, meaning Dharma is that which upholds. Dharma is also explained as Driyate iti dharmaha, meaning that not only what is supported is Dharma, but that which does the supporting is also Dharma. Therefore, we can conclude that Dharma consists of the force that sustains and what is sustained. It is also said that there is a path of Dharma as well as the conclusion of Dharma. The object of Dharma is the goal of life. So, here we can conclude that Dharma is the means and the goal. Therefore, we see in Hinduism, Dharma is the first human goal and it also forms the foundation for the setting of the other three goals. Dharmic actions are individual, social, political and professional actions which are seen to be based upon the four virtues: truth, ahimsa, morality and ethics. Dharma is a very complex word for which there is no word in any other language, including English. We have already seen that Dharma means that which upholds this entire creation. Dharma can be said to be a divine law and is responsible for all existence, although it cannot be seen or measured. Hinduism believes that Dharma exists in all planes, in all aspects and at all levels of creation. In human life, Dharma is said to consist of all actions that an individual undertakes that is in accordance with divine expectations and his own inner spiritual nature. Dharmic actions are actions that will ensure order and harmony within the individual and with the environment in which the individual lives. Since, according to Hinduism, this word is deluded, a human being may not know the difference between right and wrong or understand what dharma is and differentiate between dharma and adharma. Hence, the individual should rely upon the scriptures and obey the injunctions contained in the scriptures. So, we arrive at an understanding of dharma for a human being as a means to develop divine virtues and performing actions that are in harmony with the divine moral laws. Dharma is considered to be the first aim of human life in Hinduism because it is at the root of everything and upholds everything. For example, let us look at what happens when a person amasses wealth without observing dharma or has illicit relations with a married person or does anything that goes against social norms or moral values. The doctrine of dharma says that any action performed without observing dharma will bring misery and suffering and will also delay one's salvation. Hinduism therefore considers dharma as the first principal aim of life. In ancient India, there existed law books called Dharma Shastras, which provided guidance to people in their day-to-day lives and helped them to adhere to dharma. We find that these law books were written for a society that existed in a particular period and relevant to the modern world. Artha, the second goal of life or the second Purushartha according to Hinduism is Artha. The Sanskrit word Artha has many meanings. The word Artha means material wealth in deeper spiritual sense. However, many sages have interpreted the word Artha as meaning or understanding of one's existence. Hinduism recognizes the importance of material wealth for overall well-being of an individual. While Hindu thinking advocates simple living, it does not advocate poverty. And Hinduism does not consider wealth as a barrier to self-realization. Hinduism considers greed and attachment to wealth as a barrier to realization and not the wealth by itself. Thus, Artha means to earn wealth in accordance with Dharma. In Hinduism, therefore, we see an acknowledgement of Artha as a powerful urge in human nature. Acquisition of money towards material well-being is therefore recognized as a legitimate social and moral purpose in the Purushartha concept. We hear everyone complaining today that the whole world is running after money and neglecting moral values. While this could be true, this statement also ignores the more practical aspects of existence that is recognized in the Purushartha concept in Hinduism. We see that the ancient Hindu scriptures understood the need of people to earn money, to meet their basic necessities, for higher education, for luxuries of life, for name, fame, etc. However, what was objected to in Hinduism was the attachment to such a pursuit of material wealth. If the urge to seek money or possessions is not restricted, then it was seen to lead to greed, and that was seen as an obstacle to the highest good, that is moksha. A householder requires wealth to perform his many duties, even to uphold dharma, since it is his duty to ensure the welfare and progress of his family and society. A householder with the intention to uphold dharma may not be able to perform his duties and fulfill his dharma. Hinduism therefore places material wealth as the second most important objective in human life. Lord Vishnu is the best example of a householder who wants to lead a life of luxury and still uphold dharma by doing his duties. As the preserver of the universe, Lord Vishnu resides in Vaikuntha with great pomp and glory, with the very goddess of wealth by his side, and yet he helps the poor and the needy. He also protects the weak and upholds dharma, even sometimes leaving everything aside to rush to earth to uphold dharma. Hinduism believes that both spiritualism and materialism are important for attaining the moksha or salvation. In ancient India, Arthashastras, scriptures on wealth, provided necessary guidance to people on the finer aspects of managing their wealth. Kautilya's Arthashastra, which is probably a compilation of many independent works, gives us a glimpse of how money matters were handled in ancient India. Ancient Pali text tells us that one who enjoys his wealth and does meritorious deeds with it experiences pleasure and happiness. But Hinduism does advocate pursuit of material wealth should be combined with charity. One of the master thinkers of ancient Hinduism, Kautilya, tells us that wealth and wealth alone is important in as much as charity and desire depend on wealth for their realization. Kama. The third goal of life of Purushartha is Kama. There is a general confusion which associates the word Kama with sexual desire. Kama actually means all the desires of a person, whether they are physical, emotional, and intellectual. In both Hinduism and in Buddhism, desire has been always seen to be the root cause of all suffering. As mentioned above, Kama is ordinarily understood as pleasure. The definition of pleasure in the Kama Sutra is the following. Kama is the enjoyment of the appropriate objects by the five senses of hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, and smelling, assisted by the mind together with the soul. There is an old proverb that says, all that man does is inspired by Kama. Everyone is seeking things which gives them pleasure and helps them to enjoy luxuries of life. People feel money is the only means that will help them in the attainment of the pleasures of life by fulfilling their desires. So, we can consider that Artha is a means to achieve the end of Kama. We have seen that Kama is a wider sense means desire and in a narrow sense sexual desire. Hinduism has a very tolerant attitude to sex and considers it a natural urge that not all people can suppress. Hinduism prescribes fulfillment of sexual desires for householders and abstinence from sex for students and ascetics who are engaged in the study of the scriptures and looking for the realization of Brahman. The Bhagavad Gita instructs us that desire is an aspect of delusion and one has to be careful of its various movements. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the way to deal with desires is to develop detachment and perform desireless actions. Not seeking the fruit of one's actions and making an offering of the results of all our actions to God is the best way to perform all action. Hindu scriptures emphasize the purpose of sex as procreation and perpetuation of family and society and not just physical pleasure. Sex can be enjoyed while the purpose of dharma is adhered to and the participant ensures order in the institution of family and society. A householder has permission to indulge in sex, but he or she also has the responsibility to pursue it in according to the laws of dharma. In Hinduism, marriage is a recognized social institution and marriage with wife for the purpose of producing children is legitimate and in line with the aims of dharma. Just as the Dharma Shastras were written for the explaining all aspects of dharma and the Artha Shastras for Artha, Kama Shastras were composed in ancient India for providing guidance in matters of sex. We have lost many of these texts because of the secrecy and social disapproval associated with the subject of sex in the evolution of Indian society. Moksha. The fourth and final goal of human life according to Hinduism is moksha or liberation. Moksha indicates spiritual perfection, which according to Hinduism is attained when one leads a life that is dedicated to dharma. Etymologically, moksha means to get rid of. It is also understood as liberation. In the Bhagavad Gita, moksha is mentioned as the highest bliss. Moksha is delight in the self contentment with the self, self-satisfaction, and self-fulfillment at all times. It is said to be the highest end of life in Hinduism, attainable only by the individual himself if he takes the help and guidance of Dharma. Moksha is the last end, and this signifies that attaining moksha is impossible without first fulfilling the obligations of the other three. Being the ultimate value of man's social existence, the Purushartha of moksha is an end in itself. Beyond moksha, man has nothing to attain. Moksha is the stage where man's cravings cease, and along with also ceases his need for attainment and fulfillment. Moksha is realization and living of the highest truth of the Hindu philosophy, namely Aham Brahma Asmi and Tattvamasi. In other words, moksha is the waking up of human consciousness to the highest level of reality, Paramarthik Satha. The liberated person who has achieved moksha neither acts nor causes others to act. Moksha is the total destruction of egoism. Moksha can be known only through mystical experience. Many saints have talked about it, and Hinduism says that ultimately we all have to aim at it, and only then we will be able to come out of the cycle of birth and death. If we conceive of Dharma as guiding the life of a human being, from below acting like the earth, the foundation of his life, we can consider moksha as a star-studded sky showing him the way from above. Dharma constitutes the legs of a Purusha who walks upon the earth. Both Artha and Kama constitute its two limbs active in the middle region, while moksha can be considered as the head that rests in the heaven. Hinduism considers that human life is special because of all the beings in the world, only human beings have the opportunity to realize the higher self. Human life is also precious because, according to Hinduism, it is attained after many hundreds and thousands of lives. Salvation, therefore, should be its ultimate aim. Moksha actually means absence of moha or absence of delusion. According to Hindu thought, delusion is caused by the interplay of the three gunas or three characteristics. When a person overcomes an imbalance in his natural gunas, he attains liberation. The gunas are overcome by detachment, self-control, as well as surrender to God by offering one's actions to God. If Dharma is the center of the wheel of human life, and Artha and Kama are the two spokes, and Moksha is its circumference, If Dharma is at the center of human life, beyond Moksha there is no human life, but only a divine life. Many pictures from ancient India also depict the four Purusharthas, also like the four wheels of a chariot called human life. The four wheels collectively uphold human life and lead it in the right direction. Each Purushartha influences the movement of the other three, and in the absence of any one of them, the chariot comes to a halt or has an accident. Karma and rebirth. The law of cause and effect forms the central part of Hindu philosophy. This law is termed as karma, which means to act. The concise Oxford Dictionary of the current English defines it as the sum of person's actions in one of his successive states of existence viewed as deciding his fate for the next. In Sanskrit, karma means volitional action that is undertaken deliberately or knowingly. Karma is the criteria that characterizes human beings and distinguishes him from other creatures in nature. The theory of karma is similar to the Newtonian principle that every action produces an equal and opposite reaction. Every time we think or do something, we end up create a cause which in time will yield its corresponding effects. And this cycle of cause and effect generates the concepts of samsara or the world and birth and reincarnation. It is the personality of a human being or the jivatman with its positive and negative actions that causes karma. Karma could be both the activities of the body or the mind or both, irrespective of whether the performance of the act brings results immediately or at a later stage. In fact, Hinduism believes that the fruits of karma can be enjoyed over several births and deaths. According to the theory of karma, every person is responsible for his or her acts and thoughts. So each person's karma is entirely his or her own creation. Occidentals see the operation of karma as fatalistic. But this is far from true, since it is in the hands of an individual to shape his own future by schooling his present and tailoring his thoughts and deeds to suit dharma. Hindu philosophy, which believes in life after death or reincarnation, holds the doctrine that if the karma of an individual is good enough, the next birth will be rewarding. If not, the person may actually devolve and degenerate into a lower life form. In order to achieve good karma, it is important to live life according to dharma. The Purushartha concepts comes to us from our ancestors who lived totally different lives from us, but we can still find its relevance to our own lives. We can say that order of artha, kama, dharma and moksha is the order of importance of today's 21st century man. In fact, if the thinking of the concept dharma is always held higher than artha and kama, a lot of problems in society and family life that people face in today's world could be avoided. Here we see that dharma helps man to fulfill the obligations of artha and kama directed to the ultimate end of moksha. If artha is higher as social aim, social life will be dominated by violence and universal corruption, as we can see in present day India. If kama is predominant aim of life, it will lead to a social system based on pleasure. Moral decay and disintegration will follow, which will affect the life of our future generation. Stable family and social life is imperative for the bringing up of a healthy child and for a healthy society. In either of case, a moral vacuum will follow and people would have little chance to pursue the path of the highest good. The conception of society where people are pursuing artha and kama within the confines of dharma and thus preparing themselves for the final beatitude is the beauty of the doctrine of the Purushartha. Human life without purpose would be meaningless. One needs to have a purpose in life towards which our actions can be directed. Dharma, artha, kama and moksha are the aims or goals of human life which man ought to strive for attaining throughout his life. These arthas are meant for the Purusha, meaning meant for the human beings. Till man lives or the species of human beings is alive, Purusharthas are going to add meaning to our life. It was there earlier, it is sought today and is going to be there till man lives. We see therefore the concepts of Purushartha and Karma as well as rebirth give a broad social framework that can help individuals and society by giving a basis for social ethics. In addition to giving an individual a framework to anchor the purpose of his or her life, the Purushartha concept also gives society a framework and all individual and social actions a solid anchor that will lead to more peace in both individual and social lives.